Hi YouTube, it's Mags. I was asked to make a guide about my build as a bow crossbow. It's not a very popular weapon combination, but it is one of the highest DPS classes in Throne and Liberty. So today I'm going to actually show you uh, my build that I have. I call it the semi-auto scout build. You'll see why I call it that later. It's a lot of pew 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 and it's very consistent. It's not up to what I had it in the KR Hyper Boost, but it will get there. I'll explain about it a little bit more. So we are going to, oh, let's go back. So today is all my last video was about your stats as a range DPS and your gear that you should have on as a range DPS, right? So today we're gonna talk about your skills, right? As not as staff, not as a bow staff, because I'll have to, my third weapon will be a bow staff, but right now I'm doing bow crossbow, and people want to see want to build for that. So let's go to our skills here. Right, all right. And I'm gonna explain all of this. I'm gonna explain how all of this works, right? But I'm only gonna do the important ones because last time the video was like 1 hour and I need to cut it short because I have a war to get to, right? So we're gonna try to do this as fast as I can with remembering whatever else. So please bear with me, right? Again, because I'm not really so proficient in talking on YouTube like this. So all right, let's start. So the way my brain works, right? I to do my combos, right? I like to not need to think about, oh, I need to press 1, then 8, then 5, then 4, right? So the way I do it is I separate them in chunks, right? So I have 1, 2, 3, that's a rotation. 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 So that's how I do my rotations. I build them. I set them up like Lego blocks. I shift around, right? And then I put what synergizes with each thing together, right? So I'll explain from all the way from 1 to 12 what these skills do, right? And why you need them on your bar. This is the semi-auto build, scout build for PvE, right? So, but I need to explain this first before we get to the PvP side of it, right? Because it's very similar. The PvP build is very similar to the PvE, right? All right. So the reason why I call it a semi-auto build is it should be fully auto, but I don't have the cooldowns to match where I can constantly do the rotation indefinitely, right? It has spaces between where you don't have skills to use, so it's semi-auto. You get short bursts, then stop, short bursts, then stop, right? So your your 1, 2, and 3 are your main skills, right? This skill here is Zephyr's Knock. It does a lot of damage, right? It's one of your main damage hitting skills, right? And then you have Quick Fire, which is your another skill that does a lot of damage. These two do a lot of damage, right? And Nimble Leap will pretty much increase the damage of these two skills more, and it also resets. Nimble Leap also resets the cooldown of Quickfire, right? So these three skills are your bread and butter skills. You'll always be using these skills, right? I'll show you how the rotation goes a little bit, well, when we get along to it, right? Next set is your strafing combo, right? I just recently modified this because I found out a better way to stack the damage. Because of how your passives work, you have a finite amount of time where you need to use certain skills to benefit from the passives when they proc, right? So this setup is always set up to benefit from the passive procs, right? Because with crossbow and certain skills, there's like a 3 second window where you have to do all your damage, right? To get the damage off, right? Even like for this, when this stacks up to 10, you get 7.8% crit damage, right? For 3 seconds. So when this stacks, you need to like hit all of these, right? And you need to hit your biggest damage skills within the 3 seconds when these are procced, right? So this is why it's set up. I set it up the way I set it up, right? Because these skills go by really fast. This, you can do this rotation with under like 3 to 4 seconds. All of this under 3 to 4 seconds, right? If you do it right. So I explained Zephyr's Knock and Quick Fire, and Nimble Leap resets the cooldown of Quick Fire and also increases your crit chance. So this will crit and this will crit, and it increases it for 0.5 seconds. So when you use this skill, you're going to use these two skills, and whichever one you use first will benefit from the crit damage, from a 20% increase in crit damage for that 0.5 seconds. So as soon as you use this, use one of these, usually Quickfire, and you'll benefit from a 20% increase in crit damage, right? So that's how this works, right? And these have fast cooldowns, so you can use them over and over and over again for consistent damage. And when you have tier 2 gear, you'll have enough mana regen and cooldown to proc these really fast. So you'll always have these up, right? Right. So the next skill is this is Ensnaring Arrow, right? This pretty much it binds the target or puts a shackle on the target. If it's a boss, it shackles them. It doesn't reduce their movement or anything, but it just applies a shackle effect, right, for a duration. And when you have this passive here, which is increase melee range critical chance by so amount when a target is bound or shackled, this right here works with this skill here. So as long as your opponent is shackled or bind, then you will get this crit damage from this passive, right? So that's why it's right here. This is the skill you use first, right? Before you do your burst rotation, you shackle him, and then you use strafing, and then you use detonation mark, right? It's called something else in the specialization, but it's your marking skill. You mark the target, right? You have two marking skills. You have this one from the crossbow and this one from the longbow. But for this one, it boosts your damage you do, like the amount of it. I'll explain it after. Give me a sec, because it's really I'll explain better, but let's get to so Ensnaring Arrow, it ensnares a target and it boosts your critical damage, right? And it lasts for a while. You can increase it, so it lasts for 3.9 seconds now. It'll go higher once you upgrade it, right? So as long as you have this on the target, you're doing damage. You're doing a lot of damage to them, right? So this is what you put on first. Then you have strafing, right? Strafing buffs a lot of things, right? And in this build, it's meant to activate a passive that increases your skill damage, right? The damage you do, right? This passive here, when using a mobility skill, right, increases bonus damage by 18 and skill damage by 19 for 3 seconds. Remember those 3 seconds we were talking about? You need to use them up while the buffs are active. This is one of them. So when you do strafing, right, and strafing with the mobility skill specialization, right, strafing with the mobility skill specialization will proc nature's power, right, for 3 seconds. And in that 3 seconds, you can use your detonation mark. You can use strafing again, because this is a multi-hit thing. You use it one time and you can use it again with a consecutive use. And then you use strafing first, right? You get that mobility on the first shot. Then where you get the nature's proc. Then you mark the target with this for a lot more damage. This now, I'll explain this. Say you do 100 damage to the target, right? This will do 40% of that 100 to the target. Alright, let me explain it better. So you use strafing, right? Then you mark the target, right? You have that buff. Then you go strafing again and you use up all of strafing. If strafing does 100 damage to the target, right, while you've marked the target, right, 40% of that 100 will be detonated on the target. So you'll deal 140 damage to it once this ends, right? You'll deal 40 damage to it when this ends, right? I think that's how it works, right? So it deals 40% of the damage as bonus damage to the target, right? Additional damage to the target. So that's how that works. It's a lot of damage. Trust me, it's a nice burst damage for when you start your combos. So you use those first. This is the first skill you use. Then you use the strafing. You put the mark. Then you use the strafing again to get the damage within let's see, it's within 3 seconds. So it says deals 230% damage and has a 100% chance to weaken and mark the target for 3 seconds, right? So it marks the target for 3 seconds and damage accumulated until the mark ends at which point the mark explodes and deals bonus damage to the target equal to 40%, right? So that's what I was explaining to you, right? So you have 3 seconds. Remember those 3 seconds I was talking about? You have 3 seconds to deal all the damage you need to deal, right? So the mark can explode 40% of that damage as a bonus damage to the target, right? So that's why that's why we have such short bursts of things, and why I call it a semi-auto scout build, because you deal short bursts. But the way I'm building it, it's so you can do those short bursts consistently. So you burst here, then you go back, you burst here, you burst here. So that's what it will be when it's full auto, right? But for now it's a semi-auto build, right? So that's how you deal the damage. It's really easy, it's straightforward. Do it as fast as you can. You go 1, 2, you go 4, 5, 6, 5, 5, then you go here, so after you've done this rotation, you're strafing now. Strafing also buffs, increases the damage your Zephyr's knock will do, right? So Zephyr's knock is the next skill you'll use in the rotation, right? And Zephyr's knock is enhanced because when strafing puts marks on your target, it puts a mark on your target, and depending on the amount of marks on the target, Zephyr's knock will deal an additional damage to it, right? And also more damage depending on the distance away from the target, right? So that's the reason you should always use Zephyr's knock after strafing, because strafing buffs Zephyr's knock, right? So you see where we're going with, and we're still within that 3 seconds, right? So after we do this, we bind the target, we increase our crit damage on the target, right? We use Zephyr's knock, we use strafing, right? Which applies a target, and it also gives us the skill damage and bonus damage buff, right? And then we use the mark, right? Which is now accumulating damage, right? So you go back to strafing, which adds more damage to it, and then use Zephyr's knock, which is buffed by strafing, right? So all of this is buffing all of this, and Zephyr will hit for a lot, right? So after Zephyr hits, right, somewhere here you will run, the 3 seconds will end, right? So you can use buff duration on your stats to increase the time where you can actually use quick fire within that 3 or 4 seconds, right? So all the damage from this buff and the nature's buff, you can make it 4 seconds instead of 3 seconds. So this will be 4 seconds, and this will be 4 seconds, right? So you have time to use this skill, right? So after you've used this skill, you want to reset the skill right away. So you're going to use quick fire to reset. You're going to use nimble leap to reset quick fire, and use quick fire again, right? And you have 2 charges of this, so you can do it 2 times, right? So you're gonna be using this, reset it with this, use this again, reset it again, use this. And between using these 2 skills, your Zephyr's knock is gonna come off cooldown multiple times, because it has a perk on it. Well, it doesn't for this one. In the PvP build, I think I have the perk on it where it reduces the cooldown when you use strafing can further buff Zephyr's knock for the cooldown to be reduced, right? When you have the target debuff on the target, right? So this all buffs this, and it works seamlessly. right? It's like the devs said this is the way the skills were supposed to work. When I use it, you'll see what, when I do the rotation, you'll see what I mean, right? So let's see. So your rotation is ensnaring, arrow, strafing, then you mark the target. So one strafing, then because you can use strafing 3 times with the consecutive use specialization on it, right? So you can use it 3 times, but the mobility skill on strafing only procs on the first hit, right? That's why you need to use it first. If not, I would put it over here, right? So you use you're gonna buff yourself right now, right? So you use ensnaring arrow to buff your critical damage, right? You use strafing to buff your bonus damage and your skill damage for 3 seconds, right? And then you use mark to mark the target, right? And accumulate damage. Then you use the rest of your strafing, right, to get all that damage out, and then you use your Zephyr's knock with the strafing buff that it gets, right? Then you use quick fire, and then you reset it, quick fire, reset, quick fire, and you'll do Zephyrs between that, right? A lesser powered Zephyr, but it's still a lot of damage, right? So that's how the build actually works, right? So this is how the basic rotation works. This is your bread and butter, and this is your burst, right? You start off with this, right? So and you benefit from that. I explained how that works. This is just a bonus damage from using mobility skill. So this also procs after you proc the strafing with the mobility skill the first time, right? You'll get the nature's power for 3 seconds, and by time you reach here, the nimble leap is a mobility skill as well, right? Which will proc this again for 3 seconds. So you can do you can do the combo here too for that 3 seconds, right? So you always have this on when you're doing your burst. So you have that extra bonus damage and skill damage when you're doing your burst, right? So this is really good for that. So the skills, let me see, I'll explain passives. Oh, this is just, so every time you use a skill, you get a buff, right? You get a 1 stack of a buff that increases your skill damage, right? Because this is already increasing skill damage. Every time you use a skill, you increase your skill damage by a certain amount, right? So it increases it, and when you upgrade it, increase your skill damage by a certain amount, and when you stack it to 10, it gives you a 3 second crit damage buff, right? Remember those 3 seconds, right? I haven't totally put this in yet because it's hard to get the 10 stacks, right? But with the cooldowns, the 10 stacks will come easy, right? So this will fall into place, well, in tier 2 later game, right? But it's nice for that skill damage boost right now, right? So that explains these 3 skills, right? The next one now, the passive, let me explain here first. All right. So or should I go here? Attack, increase magic range. Yeah, this just increases your range. This is super important. It just increases your critical range hit, right? Hit is, remember in the last video I said hit, I explained stats and gear for range characters, right? This is super range hit is super important for in PvP, right? This is why you have this, right? And this is for your attack speed. The further away from the target you are, the more damage you do. This activates when you're standing still as a range character, right? For if you stand for 2 seconds, you get a attack speed boost and a range hit boost, right? So this also boosts your hit when you stand for 2 seconds. Trust me, you'll be standing sometimes for 2 seconds, right? So this is really good. This is the further away from the target, right? The more critical damage you do. So this pairs really well with this right here, right? So because this will bind the target and you'll be far away, so this will do a lot of damage, a lot of crit damage and to the target, crit chance and crit damage to the target, right? When you use that. So these 2 passes work well together with ensnaring arrow, right? Here now, defense is super important, right? I should really have this on my bar right? Because this gives you evasion, it procs evasion, right? Which is super important in the mobility. I want to work this in, but I choose to leave this out for this video because I haven't, I'm going to make another build where it incorporates it, and where I have male evasion gear, because really I want to benefit from endurance and evasion, so I'll try to make a build that includes both of them, right? So I'll do that. But it's good for, really good for the mobility too, and the evasion. That's a lot of evasion right there. And then this is the most, one of the most important skills. It gives you 3000 HP, right? With a 7% chance to proc, right? For 3 seconds, and it can proc multiple times, right? So this is super important. You need this on your bar. These two skills, you need them. I would say you need this, but you need the evasion for this to work, right? So, and I have a lot of mobility in my PvP build, so I can drop this for now, right? But this should be on there too, right? So that explains the passives. Now I'll go to the second row now and explain all of these skills and how they work with your main combo. This here doesn't change. It might change, the skill specializations might change a bit, but the rotation doesn't change. This is my my semi-auto build, right? This is MAGXCER semi-auto build. This is how I do my rotation with this, right? This never changes. It might modify a little bit, but it will stay pretty much the same because of how you can get the depth. It works in those 3-second bursts, right? For the damage. So now I'll explain this. This deadly marker, you need this, right? This is where a lot of your crit comes from. You get crit from snaring the target, right? With this, you get crit by just putting this on the target, right? Your party gets crit, and you get cooldowns from this, right? So the more you attack the target, the faster your cooldowns get, right? So you need this. This is a must to have when using in PvP or PvE. This is a PvE build right here, but you know, you need them in both, right? Because this gives you it's a lot of crit and it's a lot of cooldown from this. So this is super important as a bow user, right? Now for the snipe, how the snipe works, the snipe will benefit. I'll benefit from the snipe. The snipe will buff. Snipe's gonna buff my strafing, right? For more damage, right? Critical damage. So I'll buff my crit here, right? This snipe, I use snipe to buff crit, right? And I use this to buff crit. So by the time I reach the strafing is already like buffed up with crit, right? By the time I get the strafing, because that's where most of your damage is going to come from. Then I mark the target, and then I do the rest of the strafing with it, right? Which has the crit on it. So I do this in all 3 seconds. From here to here, it's 3 seconds, right? When I get to finish strafing, right? So I'll explain how the snipe works. I'm not using the snipe as a main skill, as a main damage skill, but it does deal a lot of damage, right? I'm not using it as a main DPS skill. All my damage comes from here, right? But the main thing for snipe, the reason why I put it here, and it's in most of my build, is that a snipe is super powerful. So I'm not saying you should not use snipe, right? Snipe is super powerful and it's a really good skill, right? If you can max it out and do all of that. But I've chosen to pick a different a more damage sustain path where you can do more consistent damage. So it's not needed in my build. I don't need to have snipe in here, but it's here for the crit damage, right? So and it does a shit ton of damage, so we're good. The reason why I use it is a successful hit increases melee range and magic critical hit chance by 200 up to 400, right? For 3 seconds. Remember those 3 seconds we were talking about? There's a lot of 3 seconds in this build, right? So all the damage comes in at 3 seconds. It's really fast. This is a ping reliant build, right? If you have good ping, you can run this build really good. Even if you don't have ping, it still works really well, right? But it's not ideal for high ping. It still works, but it's not ideal, right? So how this works, I get crit here for 3 seconds. This is a 9 seconds, so this is long. That's why I use it first, because it's long. You can get all the way down here before you you finish, this runs off, right? So you get multiples of 3 seconds, right? So you get 3 3 seconds, right? Which is 9. So you can reach all the way down here before this runs out. You can finish the whole rotation before this finishes. So you use that first, right? And snipe only buffs the critical damage of strafing, right? And your mark, right? Possibly your mark, right? So that's why you snipe. And the reason here and right here now is where most of your damage comes from, right? This is where you burst the target super fast and super easy, right? I'm not 100% sure how it works, but I think it doubles your damage. It doubles the hits you do on the target. So that's what I think it does, right? I'm not completely sure. I'm not completely sure. I can't really I'm not sure if I'm understanding it properly, but from what I can see it does and what I read about it, it it pretty much doubles if I use this, and within that let me see, within the 6 seconds I think it's active, my crossbow skills do double damage. Let's see, increases offhand double attack chance, right? By 55% for 6 seconds, right? So you have 6 seconds to get offhand double attack chance, which means your crossbow will hit, right? Hit twice. Your crossbow will hit twice for 55% of the damage, right? So no, 55% chance to your crossbow skills will hit twice. So this might do double the damage, or yeah, this might do double, or this might do double the damage. It feels like it works with strafing. Let's see. Successfully apply a stack of weaken effect within the duration. Decrease all skill cooldown by and this also decreases the skill cooldown, right? So you have this that decreases skill cooldown, and this that decreases it, right? So you have all the skills decreasing the cooldown, which is really great. This used to do it, this passive used to do it, but they changed it to this instead, right? However, having 2 stacks or more only decreases all skill cooldowns by point whatever. Each successful attack landed on the target increases the duration of all weaken effects applied by the user. So this now, so pretty much what that means is when you use mark, right, this applies a weaken to the to your enemy, which is target, that lasts longer. This applies snares, a bind weaken, so that lasts longer. You apply a mark, or I think it's just the mark, yeah, because the mark is the one that's the only weaken. So your mark, instead of lasting 3 seconds, it lasts probably 4 or 5 seconds, right? And yeah, I think that one. So it applies this. I think this also works. Yeah, this works as a weaken too, I think. All right, so it increases the duration of your weaken skills, which is really cool. And it says the cooldown decrease effect can be stacked up to 10 times within 1 second. Does not decrease the cooldown of self diffusion. So you can't reduce the cooldown of this skill itself, but it reduces the cooldown of everything else, right? When you use the skill, right? So that explains that. This is just buffing your crit and getting cool. This reduces cooldown. This reduces cooldown, doubles the damage. This increases crit. This increases crit. This increases crit. Right? So doing this here, then this, you have 3 to 6 seconds to like get all the damage out, right? Which you'll get to do during that time. So I'll explain here now, which Nature's Blessing, right? This is a really important skill. You'll get a lot of mana from this, but this can't fulfill the mana you need, right? You'll need gear for that, better gear for the mana, because this build drinks mana. It drinks mana. You'll need potions on all of that stuff, right? So this is why you have these 2 skills here, so you can at least upkeep your mana, right? So that's why you have these 2 skills here. You run out of mana fast, and the reason why you run out of mana is because of this skill here. right? Now this is where all your damage comes from. This is where if you don't have this, you don't have damage, right? That you're missing half your damage, right? If you don't have this on, right? This is where most of your damage comes from, right? Because it does a skill every time. It does an attack every time you do. It has a chance to do an attack every time you do a skill, and because you're doing attack, right? So because you're doing so much attacks, right? Single attacks, right? This procs very often, and it does a lot of damage, and it's the reason why you need so much mana, right? These two skills are here because of this one thing right here, which increases your damage by a lot, right? By a whole lot, right? For the PvE build, you're using Gale. For the PvP build, we use Frost, right? We use the Frost version of it, right? Right. So, let's go. Let's go. Now we're gonna go into skill specializations, and we'll explain that right there, right? All right. So we'll go here, and I'm only gonna explain the important stuff, not everything, but the important stuff. If you want to know something else, you just ask me on. You comment below. Please subscribe and like the video. You comment below and let me know if you actually if there's something I missed that I can clarify for you, right? So we'll go into the skill specialization, and I'll explain each skill and why you need them, right? So for the Zephyr's Knock, right? Remember we said about the Zephyr's Knock, right? How Strafing buffs Zephyr's Knock, right? So we're gonna have everything into Strafing because we're gonna use this. Just makes it do a lot more damage, adds 2 more hits, right? We need a lot of hits for this build. It adds the Gale, right? So every time it attacks, it adds a stack of Gale because we want to reach 10, so it explodes and does extra damage. And Gale inflicts 150% damage, right? When it explodes and stacks to 10, so that's why you use this, right? So this, you'll be using this a lot, which will stack the Gale, right? And Zephyr's Knock, when there's a certain amount of Gale on the target, it deals extra damage, right? So because you have this doing Gale, when you use Zephyrs, it will proc even an additional damage because you use this, right? For the decisive sniping, I ended up with putting this much points into it because I have the I have the points to invest in it, so I could invest all this into it, right? So this allows you to move while casting the skill. This is super important. This is a must-have if you're using the skill, right? This right here, it gives it bonus damage. So when a target is stunned, sleep, bind, collision, or whatever, this is buffed up, right? This does 25% more damage, right? Remember, I'm only using this for the crit damage on it. So like in PvP, I can use my Tornado, which is a collision attack, right? Which will buff this by 25% more damage, right? So that's why I use this in PvP too, right? And for this now, the chart, it just increases the damage. Just picture it as it increases the damage. So that's what you need to know about this tree here, right? You don't need anything for Deadly Marker, and you don't need anything for Ensnaring Arrow, right? So next we'll go to the crossbow, right? So this is where a lot of the damage will come from, and what defines whether you deal damage or not, right? This is where it is. It's all in the crossbow, right? So the first thing is quick fire. You need the Gale on quick fire because it does a lot of attacks in a short space of time, and it refreshes really fast. So you will be proccing a lot of Gale with this, right? So you need that. This makes it do an additional attack because before it does 3, now it does 4 attacks. So it's even more attacks for Gale to proc, right? And this increases the damage of the skill. It increases the cooldown, but it increases the damage of the skill by a lot more. And you'll be resetting it. And this here resets the quick fire whenever this reduces the cooldown of quick fire whenever you crit on quick fire, right? So you'll have quick fire back up really fast by using this skill, right? So you need all of this, right, for the damage. This is where a lot of your damage comes from, right? So now this is Nimble Leap, super important. The only thing you need to know, this here, it makes you have 2 charges of Nimble Leap, right? You can use it twice, right? And this here, when you use Nimble Leap, you reset the cooldown of Quickfire. So you only need these two. If you're gonna do PvP, you'll need this right here for PvP to be immune when you 0.5 seconds after using Quickfire, you'll be immune to stuns, collisions, binds, and sleeps, right? Super important, right? You'll see an effect like a barrier come around you, where in those seconds you're immune to those CCs, right? But this is for PvP, right? All right, so for a detonation mark now, right? The reason why I picked this, simply put, detonation mark or it's mortal mark when it's not invested into, and it becomes detonation mark when it's invested into. Simply put, this makes you do more damage, a lot more damage, right? Less damage, more damage. That's the reason why I picked that, right? So the next one now, self-diffusion, you'll only need this for PvP, where you'll need both of these for PvP. This removes stuns and sleeps from you, right? From players, not PV. It's not PVE. Doesn't work in PVE. This doesn't work in PVE. Only PvP, right? This here, this if someone attacks you within the 1 second of you using this skill, 1 second after using this skill, you get back that health they hit you with. So it's pretty much a invulnerability. You're invulnerable for 1 second after using the skill, is what it's saying, right? And you get movement speed. You also get, super important, why I need to make this new build is that this increases the movement speed increased by 45% and melee range and magic evasion by 450, right? So I want to make a build that capitalize on that evasion right there, which is a lot of evasion. So I really want to get that done, right? So this is for PvP, so you don't need to use this. You don't need to invest specializations into points into this if it's not PvP, right? This is a PvE build, all right? So now for Mother Nature Protest, you're going to use Gale. We already told you what Gale does. This, you activate it and it stays activated, and it applies Gale on the target every time you use an attack, right? So, and you want that Gale for the proc, because as we said, on hit, applies Gale for 6 seconds to the target and explodes on 10th stack, inflicts 150% damage to the enemy within a 3-meter radius, right? It's a small AoE on the target that explodes, right? And this adds to it, and this adds even more, and that adds even more. So it's a lot of damage, and this uses up the Gales for extra damage, right? Whenever you use this, so that's really good. So that's the skill specialization, and that's all this build is. But it's a crazy semi-auto type skill build, right? It does a lot of damage. So I'm going to demonstrate now how it works, right? Let's go. Let's leave our Amatoy house. Don't forget to do your Amatoys. I do them when I'm active. I do my Amatoys 1 hour each. I farm salt. I can do a guide on that too if you guys want the Amatoys and how they work, what you get from them. It's just gathering, and I like gathering salt because you use salt in cooking, like cooking and fishing. All right, so I'm gonna demonstrate the build for you guys, the rotation for you. Right, I have other videos on my TikTok and my YouTube here, with them how I use the build. Right, so this is PvE. All right, remember what we said. 1, 2, 3 is your bread and butter. 4, 5, and 6, right, is your how you start your burst phase, right? And you buff all this with 7, 8, and 9, right? So you're gonna buff up first, and then you're gonna do your rotation, which is 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Yeah, just like that, right? And that's the whole rotation, right? I'll demonstrate right here, right now. All right. It's very mobile. You move around a lot, so there's a lot of stuff you gotta do. But you know, it's Once you catch it, it's worth it. Now let's go. Alright, and now we have a downtime. We can use that skill right there. Again, use that. Now our snipe is back for the 3% chance to crit, right? For the 3 seconds of crit damage, and then we use those skills again. Now we're gonna wait on our what we do, we use our 1, 2, and 3 off cooldown and wait for our snipe to get back. Now snipe is back. We use the marker again for the crit damage. We use that for crit damage, double damage there. We use that for the buff, the skill damage buff, and then we use that and that. Or we're back to our bread and butter, right? Our filler skills, pretty much, we call them. And now snipe is back. We go snipe. You're looking, it's the snipe you're watching, right? Once snipe is up, your rotation goes back. You can do the rotation again, right? So we're waiting on snipe. We have 10 seconds before snipe comes back, so we gotta use our filler damage, right? Until snipe gets back. In between all of that, you're using your these 2 mana skills, right? You're using these 2 skills the whole time off cooldown because you drink mana. As you can see, I'm out of mana already, right? And once you're out of mana, this deactivates. It just turns off, right? And if it's not turned on, this is how it looks, right? You're dealing regular damage and you deal some double damage there with the bows. When you put both, you get its offhand chance is when you see her use the both crossbows at the same time. That's offhand damage attack, right? So crossbows have a chance to proc that. So if you're using a crossbow, it's always the one you equip, right? In your offhand, and you use it as your main, and you use it as your primary weapon, right? So now we turn that Gale on, and you look at it, all those things going around, you see like little leaves and stuff, and the green looking thing firing. That's Gale right there. It's proccing really fast, proccing a lot. That's because you're using crossbow, and it has a lot of it attacks fast, so it procs even easier, right? So we'll go over the rotation again. Always use these 2 skills, right? Then you go crit, you go for that, spam that. You gotta be mindful that you need to stay in range of your target, right? Alright, so this downtime that we have, this gets shorter the more gear you have, right? The better gear you have, that time gets shorter. And standing still also increases your attack speed, which increases the animation speed of your skills, right? So that's the whole rotation, right? This does a lot of damage. It might look simple, but it's a lot of damage, right? I have my skills to buff my crit again. I go buff my crit, I'll do my skills. That's the whole skill. That's the whole rotation, guys. That's the whole rotation. So that's your PvE, right? The cooldowns get shorter the higher level you are, and it gets so much better. It gets crazy good after this, right? When you have better gear and stuff. Right, now I'll show you the PvP build real fast. I gotta do it fast. Alright, so the difference now, right? We need the tornado, right? Tornado for PvP, which remember I was saying snipe benefits from it, right? But I get this one doesn't have snipe in it. I don't have snipe on it. I'll have to fix it, but snipe benefits from, but we're not using snipe on that one, right? So what we do here is we remove the Gale. Now it's about the CCs and surviving, right? So you need your survival skills where, you know, you'll put points into this and points on these because you need these. This is super important for PvP, right? You don't need the Gale now, right? So you use those, and I use the Frost arrow, right? Not Gale, we use Frost because Frost adds weaken to the target, right? And the thing I'm doing is I want more attack speed, right? I'm using the attack speed. So in my PvP build, right, I use Wind Chaser to increase my attack speed because I have the frost scale active, right? Frost arrow active, right? Frost arrow weakens the target, slows the target when you attack the target, right? And if the target is already slowed, when I use Wind Chaser, I get attack speeding. I get 15% more attack speed for 3 seconds, right? So there comes the 3-second rules again, right? There's a 3-second rule here, right? So instead of having snipe here, I have this, which increases my attack speed instead of my crit. So I'm going for more crit. I'm going for more attack speed here instead of crit, right? Which is faster. And also the reason why I use this is because it also slows the opponent. This also slows your target. This slows your target, and you get a boost of movement speed from this skill as well as attack speed. So when you use this, you sprint. You can sprint away from you can run away from anyone, right? Or catch up to anyone, right? So this is why I use this in PvP. You use this, people are dead, right? And you know why we use this already, and I've already explained how these skills work, right? The only difference here is that we're not using the mana thing, because we still drink mana, but this is PvP. We reset a lot, you know. We can't afford to not have the tornado here, right? We would have flash arrow, but I'll have to do another build for that, right? I have a build for it, but in this PvP build, all you need to know is that you need your tornado, you need the Wind Chaser with the frost arrow, Mother Nature protest activated, right? And you need this and this, right? You need this for the crit, this for the double damage and cooldown. So these two are cooldowns, right? So that's the difference with the build. I didn't change anything here. It's all the same, and it works like this, right? Turn that on. I have frost. If I attack, you see the frost skills going, right? Same thing. And if you look, the target is slowed, right? They have a weaken on them. They're slowed by 30%, right? That's what you want. If they're slowed, right? If I bring my buffs up here, if they're slowed and I use Wind Chaser, right, on them, if I use this Wind Chaser on them, look at my look here. I get a attack speed buff and a movement speed buff by 30% for a long 3 seconds, right? So for the 3 seconds I'm doing my burst, I can be either in range or out of range. So imagine melees. You're fighting against melees, and I use this skill, right? I can keep away from the melee with this skill. I slow them by 30% and I increase my speed by 30%. So that's like a 60% speed increase I have right there on melees and range characters. So no one can get away from you, no one can chase you, right? That's what this skill is, right? You can kite people, you can line of sight, you can do all of that stuff with this skill, right? So that's why this is super important for protecting yourself, right? Remember I said when you use this within the 1 second of using that skill right there, you pretty much won't take the damage, right? If you use that right. It's hard for me to use it, right? But sometimes I think it doesn't work. I'm wondering if it really does, but you know, that's what it does. That's why I use it, right? So this is super important. With the reason why we use this Wind Chaser is so we can we can get all the buffs from this, right? Let me read what this does, right? It says fires an arrow, deals 100% base damage with 80% chance to inflict weaken effect. That, just think of it as 100% once, because you have stats on your armor, it puts it to 100, right? So kinda, right? So inflicts weaken effect that decreases the target's movement speed by 30% for 3 seconds, right? Remember those 3 seconds, as well as increases the user's movement speed by 30% for 3 seconds, right? So, right, 60% movement speed, you can call it, right? Increases the skill on the target with a movement speed reduction debuff applied by the user, adds another stack of weaken and binds the target for 2 seconds. So pretty much if your target is already slowed, using the skill on a target with a movement speed reduction, right, which is what this does, right? This has a movement speed reduction, right? Let's see. You use the skill on the target with a movement speed reduction debuff applied by the user, adds another weaken status bind and the target for 2 seconds, decreases the target's attack speed by 15% for 3 seconds, while increasing the user's attack speed for by 15% for 3 seconds. So that's the reason why I use this. You get a lot of attack speed with this skill, right? For 3 seconds, which allows you to do these skills even faster. So that's the whole point of the build, right? You want to get all your damage out while they're in their tornado. So once you have them there, you go here, tornado him, you set a mark, you do your thing, you get your buff, you do this, that. While they're probably dropped now, then you know, and that's it. They're dead. That's how you do it. The skill is super fun, super mobile, right? You can keep like snaring, keeps the target where it is, so it's really fun. I just modified the build to include snare in it, right? Because I wanted to do it all along, but I didn't know how I was gonna do it yet. But I figured it out before we did the video, so we have our ensnaring arrow in there now. So this is a super fun build, right, to play. I love it. The only build I'm gonna play after this, well, I'm gonna fully play this. I will always be a bow main, as I said, right? I'll always be a bow main, but I'll always be a bow main, but the crossbow is so much fun, right? I love the crossbow. Right, I already explained how stats work and everything. You have PvE and you have PvP. It works the same as in the last video. Check out my last video on range gear progression for range DPS, right? It still explains everything there. My things might change. I did get to trait some stuff out and everything, you know. So my stats are a little bit better now. So that's pretty much it. That's the build I have. That's my PvP. Right there, I'll do the rotation for you again. This is PvP. Float them with a tornado. And you apply everything to them, slow them, everything. Do that. Right, and you wait on your wind chaser to come back. Or you can go from snare and then do your rotation again. Easy, right? And that's your PvP, right? PvP, and now this is your PvE with your Gale now. You just want a lot of damage. The Gale allows you to do a lot of damage to the target, right? So you're gonna buff yourself again, you go. That snipe. And this build could be modified as well to be PvP, right? If you wanted to use this one for PvP without the attack speed increase. Alright, there you go. If you wanted to modify this, the PvE one for PvP, you'd need to put 1 point here. You need to put get 5 points, put them here. And you need 17 points, 5 here and 7 there. So you'd need to probably remove the Gale, actually. You need to remove you could remove the snipe. Snipe. Yeah, you could remove snipe. So you could add the PvP stuff. Because I said snipe isn't really actually you want the crit on snipe. Well, I guess that's why I removed snipe, so I could make this one PvP. So no snipe there, I could add the stats here. So yeah, there you go. So that's how you make a PV. That's my crossbow build, guys. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more. As I said, it's not easy for me to talk like this to get my thoughts out and all of that, so it takes me a while. So please just bear with me while I try to get better at it. I will get better at it. I'll keep doing it as long as you guys want more videos like this. I'll keep making them, right? I'm more show gameplay or whatever, but you know, if you want guides, I will make the guides for you if you really want them, right? But you know, I'm not the best at it or anything. So thank you for watching. Please share, like, and subscribe for more content like this. All right, MAGXCER out. Bye.